Hi, everyone here and around the world. Some good news. This Earthfiles YouTube channel has broken through 275,000 subscribers. I thank you all so much. And if you haven't subscribed, please click on that red button in the lower right of your screen. It doesn't cost you anything, but it helps us with YouTube. And thank you for all of your get well from flu messages. Last week, I completely lost my voice. But I was also able to read lots of your mail, digital and postal. There are more and more of you coming forward to share your own interactions with non-human intelligences. Your courage to reach out provokes me to keep digging deeper into the phenomenon of human abductions by non-human intelligences that are not only here on Earth right now, but have been interacting with Earth and this solar system for at least 278 million years. And that is according to aerospace, military, and physics whistleblowers who have communicated with me confidentially. Since at least World War II, a few million Earth humans have reported interactions with tall and short humanoids that are not Homo sapien. Some are described as biological ETs, others as artificial extraterrestrial intelligence. The aliens often use beams of light or basketball-sized spheres of various colored light to interact with Earth humans and animals, including bloodless, trackless animal mutilations around the world. Some extraterrestrials, like these small, identical cloned android workers, are allegedly on Earth to harvest genetic materials from Earth life, including human sperm and eggs, for reasons unknown. But according to government and military sources, the extraterrestrials have harvested from Earth life for eons. 33 years ago, between July and September 1991, the Roper Poll Organization conducted a survey of the United States adult population to learn how many people reported, quote, UFO abduction-related unusual personal experiences, close quote. The survey was sponsored by the Robert Bigelow Holding Corporation in Las Vegas, Nevada. Here is the title and abstract page of the final report, quote, The UFO Abduction Syndrome, a report on unusual experiences associated with UFO abductions based upon the Roper Organization's survey of 5,947 adult Americans, produced with Bud Hopkins of the Intruders Foundation, David Michael Jacobs, Ph.D., History Department, Temple University in Philadelphia, and Ron Westrom, Ph.D., Sociology Department, Eastern Michigan University. Quote, The incidence of abduction experiences appears to be on the order of at least 2% of the population, close quote. The estimating numbers on page 47 of the Roper Survey analysis states, quote, It is useful to translate the actual percentages of yes respondents in our sample of 5,947 to the equivalent number of people among the 185 million ostensibly represented on Earth by Roper's demographically balanced sample. The process yields some surprising results. The item which yielded the highest number of yes responses was 18% of our respondents who say they have wakened up paralyzed with a sense of a strange person or presence or something else in the room. This percentage, with a plus minus 1.4 margin of error, represents 33,300,000 people, close quote. The total number of respondents who answered yes to 4 or 5 of the 5 key symptomatic questions is 119, or 2% of the sample of 5,947. 2% of the 185 million adult Americans represented by the Roper sample is 3,700,000 people who have symptoms of being abducted by ETs. Close quote. I have been investigating UFOs, ETs, bloodless and trackless animal mutilations, and human abductions since September of 1979. That's 45 years ago when I started. One group of people that I have heard from most often have been military families, as if the UFO themselves concentrate on certain human groups who, in this case, would work or live in military facilities above ground or below ground. And in adulthood, those people are often haunted by childhood memories of strange moving lights and beams around their bed at night, as well as humanoid-shaped shadows. And sometimes there are actual non-human beings, some small, like young children, but others very tall, at least 7 to 8 feet. Terrified, the experiencer in bed remembers trying to move, but could not because they were paralyzed. Recently, in mid-July 2024, I was contacted by a 45-year-old son of a U.S. military father who had been stationed in the 1960s and 1970s at several military bases that included Fort Devens, Massachusetts, Fort Bliss, Texas, Ramstein Air Base in West Germany, Loring Air Force Base in Maine. The father worked in U.S. military intelligence operations. And before the father died in 2012 of aggressive brain cancer, he began to share UFO and ET information with his son, who has asked me to call him simply DJ. DJ's father linked UFOs and extraterrestrials to ancient Earth history in Sumeria, Egypt, and Greece. The 7 sages of Mesopotamia included councils of 7 in ancient Earth history. They worshipped the Eternal One. That eternal being exists outside of time and is the source and goal of everything else that exists. Those councils of 7 in Sumeria, Egypt, and Greece were described in this ancient poetry. The Eternal One has made a covenant oath with us. Asheru has made a pact with us, and all the sons of El, and the great council of all the holy ones, with oaths of heaven and ancient earth. Close quote. Recently, I talked with DJ about his childhood, to adult interactions with a variety of extraterrestrial biological entities in the context of his military intelligence father's knowledge of extraterrestrial humanoids and technologies interacting with Earth.
He told me that the Council of 7 in the ancient writings, he said that's true.
I searched the number 7 in Pythagorean numerology and found the number 7 means spirituality, with the physical number 4 and spiritual number 3. If you search the number 7 in the ancient world, you will find words like these, quote, "The League of 7 are the magically assigned leaders of the 8 races created by the 7 most intelligent gods at the time of the formation of the Council of 7 some 2,000 years ago. The council sacrificed their lives to seal chaos back into hell." And what year was your father telling you about UFO ET related material?
Yeah, 2012.
And your father finally said to you that UFOs and ETs are absolutely real on Earth?
Yes. That a lot of the stuff found in the real ancient writings, such as Sumeria, is all true. That he knew for a fact it was all true. He did tell me that he had a file of documents in his room that I should read the whole thing. So after he passed, I sent a bunch of stuff back with my mother and my twin sister to South Carolina, where I am now. And when I got here, I went into that box to try to find that stuff. All of it was gone. Every single file was gone. Very bizarre.
Do you remember any of the titles?
They were in a bunch of folders, probably about maybe 3 to 4 inches thick at the least.
Your father, before he died, was saying to you, his son, I want you to read what's in that box.
100%.
Isn't one of the ironies that when you were 5 to 6 years old, you started having interactions with ETs, craft, and lights?
Yes, very much so. My very first memory happened when I was about 5 or 6 years old in Worcester, Massachusetts. My twin sister and I shared a room together as we were just young toddlers. And one night I woke up out of a sleep and the entire room was lit up like it was daylight, shining right through the window, and light just pouring in, and it didn't make sense to me. So I covered up my entire body with a blanket. And then a moment later, I heard in a robotic-like voice the word beam, like a sunbeam, just the word beam. And then the next thing I know, I am in a complete white room. I couldn't discern the walls from the floor, from the ceiling, just white. And I'm on like a table or a bench, and my sister is there, and she's freaking out. And I'm trying to calm her down because for some reason I knew that maybe I had been there before and not remembered it. I don't know, but I knew it wasn't anything that we were in danger of. So I'm trying to calm her down, and then in walk what I call the twins. 2 beings that are like an olive color. They looked very biological to me. They didn't have the big black eyes. They had littler eyes, kind of looked almost Asian in appearance, I would have to say.
Mm-hmm.
And they spoke to us without moving their mouth. And I remember them saying, "You're twins?" asking us rhetorically. And I said, "Yes, we're twins." And the being said back to me, "We're twins too," as they're both standing there and they look identical. And later on, I figured that that was due to their genetic cloning that they do or whatever.
That they were clones.
Yeah, that was the impression I got. Did seem very interested in the fact that I had a twin sister. Like, I don't know if they really knew about the possibility of fraternal twins. It seemed to me that they were confused at the fact that we weren't part of the same cell.
That you were not part of the same cell that the ETs would use to clone.
Yes, to make twins, fraternal twins. She's a girl, I'm a boy.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't really understand that, it seemed to me. Like they didn't get it. Like it wasn't supposed to happen. And it was really weird because after that, I never, ever shared another experience with my sister. But that's when things got real interesting for me. After that was the real weird part. I caught a virus that no one knew what was wrong with me after these events started happening.
What age?
5 or 6.
And you get sick how?
I didn't feel good. And within a matter of hours, my whole body blew up like a balloon. So my father gets home and they bring me to the hospital, which was at Fort Devens, and I was immediately admitted. I only saw 4 people: my dad, the doctor, and the 2 nurses who participated in the procedure when I was admitted. Those were the only 4 people I saw the whole time. The curtains were drawn to my room the entire time. I never had any roommate. Every time they moved me to the lab, I believe it was in the middle of the night because I never saw anyone else there. That was very bizarre.
Did you ask your dad what is going on? And did you link it, even at 6 years old, to the light beings that had come into your room?
At that point, I was so young, I don't think it clicked. As I got older and I was thinking about it, that I began to wonder. And then I had seen a thing on TV talking about genetics, and they said that if a scientist wanted to alter the genetics of an already living organism, that the best way to accomplish that would be through a retrovirus. Now, on this document that I had, it was a diagnosis document. Circled was the word virus, ? On the document that I now can't find.
It was in some kind of a box where you live now, and that somehow this document suddenly disappeared?
Yeah, it was with my father's documents. They're all in the same file box, and all my medical records from when he was in the military was in that. I read that folder a couple times. Once while he was in the hospital getting ready to pass, I sat there and was reading it. That's why I have such a clear recollection of what it said, because I just read it in 2012. Now, when I discovered that his military files had disappeared a few years later in 2015, I didn't think to check my own records. And I thought I still had this document the whole time. And then when I went to find it, when I started talking to you, that's when I discovered that it was no longer there. Whenever his documents got hyphed, I think they looked and took mine too, dealing with that particular case. But it's very bizarre.
Starting at age 5 and coming up to now, your life is still impacted by these beings?
Oh, absolutely. I remember one time I was just not cooperating on the ship. So I just was freaking out. This is strange because I kind of remember 2 human-looking people, and one of them asked the ET entity if it could calm me down because I was just freaking out. And then the next thing I know, I see this entity shape shift into my own mother.
Wow.
And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, huh? So it immediately calmed me down, and I wasn't screaming anymore. But I couldn't understand how she got there. So I'm just kind of staring at her, and I'm calmed down, and then they do whatever it is that they do. They were reading something about me, I think, because they didn't do anything physical to me, but they were all behind these screens and stuff. I don't know what. But the thing about this is the hologram of my mother they had. She was wearing this green corduroy coat that I'd never seen before. 2 years later, she went out shopping, and she came home with that same coat.
Like a time slip.
Yes, like they had taken a vision of her in the future and showed it to me then. That is 100% absolutely true, because I will never forget that. When she came home with that coat, my mouth like hit the ground, like I was blown away. And I think that is what started piecing together the memories and the fact of what was actually happening to me.
It's my understanding from, let's say, some military and aerospace people who have talked to me about the fact that we're dealing with advanced intelligences that are manipulating time.
Absolutely.
This is the way they move, and that there will be time discrepancies, whether it's a year, 2 years, 7 years, 10 years, in which it might be a trip for the non-humans, but the impact on the actual humans on Earth could be exactly what you're talking about. That this image of the mother was because they were manipulating time when they were coming to Earth to interact with you.
Almost like faster than the speed of light, go back in time.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense. I do know that there's also been some other weird things where I felt like I was on one timeline and then got moved to another, and that's very weird. Since all these events happened, I've had certain things that I can seem to do. One of them is I can get glimpses further down the timeline where it's like they want me to know that I should maybe make another choice when that time comes. So, like, in a dream, I would have a super realistic dream, and then further down the road, that same event starts to happen. Not deja vu, I mean, begins to happen the way I saw down to the second. And that's when I know that maybe I was shifted along this timeline because I might have made the wrong choice. and they didn't want that.
But what you're implying is that these ETs that you have sketched and have been interacting with since you were 5 years old, that they went to the future in time, accessed something that you would do in the future, decided that they would go back to the present, make you go through a dream or go through an experience in which you would feel yourself killing this person. And then when you actually evolve to that point in Earth time, you already had the imprint, oh my God, I could kill her. And you didn't because of what the ETs had shown you.
Exactly, 100%. It's almost like they have some kind of vested interest in me where they don't want me to mess up. I don't know why that is, and I don't know to what extent. I get this feeling that something's going to happen in the future and that I am supposed to be here to help with that, and they don't want me to not be here for that.
Can you now show us, through your words, what have these beings shown you in sleep or awake about events in the next few years?
These beings have so much push and pull on what we do here that we don't even know the half of it. The pictures, we covered the twins, next with the gray that's kind of purple sheen to it, and the cloak, and then the little guy underneath them. The eyes are a little bit different. Those are my guys. I know I've heard before on your interviews you call a Merther.
A Merther, yeah, Emerther. The Merther is a word that has come into the minds of some humans that have been abducted as being tall grays. Instead of short, they're very tall, and their heads are large. Their eyes are the slanted black lenses that are definitely lenses on top of their eyes. And the Merthers have been related by abductees as being extremely advanced intelligences that are somehow perhaps overseeing, dictating, controlling what has happened to what the abductees feel that we humans on Earth are a huge experiment, and that all these interactions with other beings is because there is monitoring and interaction with the Homo sapien experiment.
Absolutely. I feel exactly that entire thing that you said. So that one with the purple sheen, I remember when you were talking to Tactical Tim from Germany.
Right.
I was blown away by his interviews because he was talking about the different gray types and the different colors, because I've seen them. The brownish ones, olive ones, are what I called the doctors when I was a kid. They're like the doctors, wore lab coats, and they seem to be the ones that were most interested in the physical part of being a human. And the little gray guys are more than likely droids that do menial tasks. I know you're familiar with Jim Sparks. A lot of his interviews have been spot on to my experiences, where he said that the droids seem to have bigger eyes than the more biological ones.
Right.
That's because, as you can see in the pictures, the almond shape goes the opposite way, and it makes their eyes look bigger. Mm-hmm. And that's how you can tell the droid from a more biological one. In my experience, the biological one, the points point inward, and on the droid one, they point outward. I don't know why. That's just what I noticed in my experiences. And when they talk about when you're in the craft and it's lit up, like you can see light, but you can't see where the light is coming from. The first time I was in there, I must have stared at a light for hours trying to figure out where that light was coming from, and I could not do it. It is the weirdest thing.
Was it like the entire matter world that you were in, of walls, ceilings, floors, were glowing?
Yeah. It's almost like a light bulb is shining on a certain area, but there's no bulb there. It's very bizarre. The light emanates out like it's a light bulb, but there's no light bulb there. It just twists your mind up. You can't comprehend what's happening when you see that. Another thing I remember one time being really small, is when they showed me how the craft itself can connect into your consciousness. They brought me down into the lower part, and what I assume is the gravity emitting device was a screen, almost like a flat panel screen that you would see today. And they grabbed this little, almost like a headset, and they put it on, and you could see the nerves on the screen. So I'm guessing that it was like a neural computer network, and it shifted all around and matched up with the entities till they were the same and connected. That's all I know about it because I was like 7, so I don't really know much else. But then he asked if I wanted to try it, and of course I was like, yeah. So he put it on me, and then I saw the little things line up, and then it all interconnected, and apparently now, like that craft, if I were to come across that craft, like in a field, I could probably get into it.
By doing what?
Just by being there.
The presence of your body with the very specific DNA coding and RNA coding that you have, that the body code in the genetics itself can open up UFO craft.
Probably. I think it might be more neurologically based, more conscious based. I can tell you about a procedure they did once, which hurt. Like all you can imagine, they took a needle, a very big one, and they went through the roof of my mouth up into the skull. I could hear bones cracking, and it hurt. I lost consciousness. And then for years afterwards, you know that big, like, bump on the roof of your mouth?
Mm-hmm.
Right behind that, I could feel the hole where they put that needle, and I used to play with it, sitting in class with my tongue.
Well, my God, what were the gray ETs trying to do?
I don't know, but I suspect it has something to do with my pineal gland. I can tell you this right now, it's a great party trick. I can go anywhere. You can me around in circles, it doesn't matter, and I can tell you where north is, and that's a fact.
Because your pineal gland, what has happened?
Whatever they did to it, I'm not really sure. All I know is that they did tell me that consciousness itself across this universe is, for humans and all advanced consciousness, it has to do with your pineal gland and then quantum entanglement of atoms.
Quantum entanglement of atoms actually looks like a yin and yang symbol. The yin and yang is Taoist and represents the balance between two opposing forces that are interconnected and yet constantly changing. It's a circle made up of black and white swirls with each section containing a portion of the opposite element. The yin and yang symbol represents the idea that opposites can complement each other and create balance and harmony in the universe. The yin and yang symbol represents the idea that all things in the universe are inseparable and contradictory opposites. The yin and yang symbol represents the idea that opposing forces are constantly changing. The yin and yang symbol represents the idea that the duality of yin and yang is an indivisible whole. And since the Cambrian explosion 1/2 billion years ago, our planet has gone through multiple mass extinction events which occur with a surprising periodicity of approximately every 26 million years, as well as innumerable Yuga cycle transitions of lesser intensity. In every extinction cycle, the 7 sages, also known as the Council of Seven, came to the Earth and have been described as repopulating this planet with life forms after the various cataclysmic episodes were over. Earlier this summer of 2024, I interviewed Marshall V.N. Summers, the longtime writer of The Great Waves of Change and the Allies of Humanity books. At one point he said, quote, "We humans are entering a universe of intelligent life we know nothing about," close quote. And I said, and there is a lot of deception. It's like Earth is in play, and has been for a long time. And the game is genetic manipulation of already evolving primates, humanoids, and other Earth life. But what do the non-humans really want from Earth life and Homo sapien? If all were good and okay, wouldn't we have been told centuries ago? That question haunts me as we come to the end of 2024 almost and going into 2025 to 2030 time period that CIA and SADIA controlled remote viewers studied back in the late 1980s. According to controlled remote viewer Lynn Buchanan, each of the several government remote viewers had seen that by 2030 there were great changes on Earth, such as lots of water covering what we have known as solid land. DJ told me that the twin grays that he sketched and the purple gray female he has seen many times, he said those beings have told him that the huge 1,100 feet long Apophis asteroid will be dangerous. It is supposed to come close to Earth twice. First, on April 13th, 2029, when it will pass within only 19,000 miles from Earth. Because Apophis is so large and will come so close, more than 2 billion people on Earth's eastern hemisphere will be able to see the bright asteroid as it is expected to pass over Earth without collision. The second close approach will be in 2036. NASA publicly states it doesn't expect collision at that time or the other time, at either time. But DJ told me the Greys in his life have warned that the Apophis asteroid could hit Earth. He says whatever they tell him will happen, has happened. So even if NASA thinks Apophis is not going to collide with Earth, DJ worries that the non-human beings might be right because he has never known them to be wrong. Hi, Ian. I'm so glad you recovered from COVID at the time that I was sick with flu and that you are back. And I'm so eager to learn what questions and comments are flowing in tonight's chat about a subject here done in more depth than normal that I think is going to become more and more front page because so many people are beginning to emerge from talking very frankly about their abduction experiences.
Hi, Linda. Yes, it's great to be back, and it's great to have you back with us again as well this week for the live show. And this is a topic that you're covering that is personal to myself as well. I've had a lot of experiences of sleep paralysis myself over the years, and some experiences were pretty terrifying. We've got Jude McGill in the chat today has said that 2 people sleep paralysis, and this is what I think is fascinating as well, is when it's corroborated by more than one person, show that an event actually happened. Jude says, we heard the door open and the floor creaking. My friend was sleeping on the couch. I was sleeping on the floor. We both tried to jump up, but we were unable to move. We didn't remember anything else the next day. So again, it seems like there was perhaps a missing time episode here as well.
I know a military guy who had the experience of having both, he's being waked up with symbols in his forehead and something that sounds like a language. He was hearing in his ears, he was seeing with his eyes, and he has this sense that something is there, but he cannot. He knows that his wife is just to his right, behind him, because he becomes conscious lying like that on his left side. And he tries to move, which for him, it accentuated that he was paralyzed and he could not move. And yet he has symbols, and there was some kind of telepathic communication. And here's his wife right here, and he can't reach back. he can't wake her up. That was one of the most dramatic ones, where there were two people together and they're only a foot or so apart, and one of them is actively trying to resist whatever is in the room and whatever is keeping them in that nighttime paralysis, and couldn't reach the wife. I've talked with others who they've waked up and it might be the paralysis, but more than anything else, they have adrenaline surging. They want to grab the partner, and they are able to, which is another puzzle, where they then get a total verification of what is happening in real time by the person or people that they are living with. So it's at both ends of the spectrum, making in some ways the phenomena that is responsible even more mysterious about what are its actual goals.
We got Christina Ledesma Jimenez in the chat tonight, and she actually says, how do they paralyze us? Alien tech or something else? I think it's important that we perhaps explore what the actual procedure is that's being used on us.
Ian, I have had a person working in aerospace who's now retired, who has talked to me, and I know that what he has told me has been quite accurate. And he offered this insight. He says, we are dealing with intelligences so advanced that they can use frequencies to do all kinds of things, controlled, however it is that whatever it is that they want applied to. And that when it comes to something like the night paralysis, that I'm pretty sure that our government intel forces know the answer in great detail to that question. Mine is not detailed, but it does reflect what the aerospace retired person told me, that they have all kinds of different frequencies that can be generated by things that they wear on their body that to us might look like a button or something strange and circular, and it's an actual piece of equipment. And it can generate frequencies, and they know us so well because they have been abducting us for millennia. And they know how to interact with our nervous system, with our brain, with the pineal gland, with the heart, with everything, at whatever degree of focus and orientation that they choose. So I think it is a frequency, and that it was confined to him. And he never even, the woman never woke up. She was not even aware. It was that compartmentalized. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's right. It seems to be often directed towards just one individual. I've got another example here from Jerry, which seems to indicate that more than one person was involved in this event. Jerry says some tall dudes in cloaks and staff rods and grey hoods came to our bedrooms, stood in the light, and we could not move. This was about 30 years ago. Weird. And one of the things that strikes me as well is a lot of the people in the chat this evening are sharing with us experiences that happened to them years ago. I've got someone who says they're 71 years of age in 1965 when they're about 12 years old. They said they had the same thing happen to them that they now understand to be perhaps an alien abduction experience, but they still say that's one of the most terrifying experiences of their life.
And let me insert something quickly. There's no question in my mind that the 1950s and the 1960s, coming after World War II, which has been described by a physicist from originally, I think, a German who was working in the United States, as an extraterrestrial war fought through human bodies. And that in the United States, there's no question that there were these spikes of UFO activity beginning in the White Sands area and parts of New Mexico. And then the next wave outside of what was happening around UFOs all over the place, where we were trying to use the German physicists to help us develop rockets. There were many observations of something round, spherical, disc shape, where we were doing launch tests. And in addition to the launch tests, that began in what I would say would be the late 50s. There were bloodless, trackless animal mutilation cases, but they weren't identified as having anything to do with UFOs at the time. By the 1960s, animal mutilations was beginning to be a subject that was being reported in Australia and many, many parts of the earth. By the 1970s, and that year, 79, when I read the headlines in the Denver Post and the Rocky Mountain News, both using the verb, the return of animal mutilations, bloodless, trackless, the return of, is when I began to realize that here was this association between dead, bloodless, trackless, no tracks around the body, having law enforcement and others look to the sky, and then having the phenomena show up at night, putting beams down. So by the 70s, animal mutilations and UFOs were bound together, and paralleling at about the same time were human abductions like the Betty and Barney Hill case in 1961. And then when you get up to when I finally started, I have to get to the bottom of this bloodless, trackless animal mutilations story, and I've got to get pathologists and I've got to get people who can study the tissue, that by the turn of 79 to 1980, Bud Hopkins' Missing Time book came out right at the time where I'm September 79 to May 25th of 1980, and A Strange Harvest was broadcast. Bud Hopkins has his book Missing Time published at about exactly the same time. And here we were on the conference schedules talking about two phenomena that really were becoming clear were probably linked to UFOs and ETs, but it took a long time to get to that link and association. And Ian, doesn't that the evolution from World War II, described by a scientist as an extraterrestrial war fought through human bodies, coming up through the 50s and the 60s into the 70s, that it was as if there was some kind of a control, an evolutionary control through time from that war to where things were in our face by the beginning of the 1980s.
Yes, it does. And you referenced the Barney and Betty Hill case, which was
61.
This week. Yeah, this week it was 63, because that was September the 19th to the 20th in New Hampshire, 1961, exactly 63 years ago. Just puts it in perspective as well for how long this has been going on. And I've just been referencing as well Carla Turner's book Taken, which references the case of someone called Pat, who at her Indiana farm as a child, she remembers the ET events taking place there, but also when a well-prepared government team moved in with hazmat suits, etc., and was sort of put in place to remove evidence and silence witnesses back in 1954, soon after the 1947 events.
And doesn't that question that I posed, and I'd like to throw this to everybody listening, if everything was cool, intelligent, safe, wonderful, about being introduced to the first extraterrestrials who showed up, why wouldn't that have been one of the possibilities in this incredibly layered universe? In other words, right from the beginning, whether you go to biblical times and back through Mesopotamia and all the way back, the gods were separated from humanity, but they collaborated in ways. This is like the coming of something that never publicly really introduces itself and says, I'm from Arcturus, and we are here to meet you. We mean you no harm. and bringing a peace offering or whatever they would call it. That's what I always thought is the way it would be. But it's been centuries, centuries of deception and, we'll say, evolving, what appears to be evolving goals of the non-humans.
Yeah, it goes on and on. It's amazing as well. People are still talking about childhood experiences and how it's affected them. I've got Diana Higgian here is saying that she remembers when her abductions began in childhood, she developed multiple chemical sensitivity disorder. She said back then the doctors were clueless. They believed it was all in my mind. I tried to explain what's happening to me. They couldn't understand. It made me sad. I would ask for CT scans because I thought I was going to die. Everything came up as normal on the scans. As an adult, I'm cured because I take vegan supplements with antioxidants that build up the immune system. I believe that the abductions triggered the change in my DNA, which resulted in my self-diagnosis. I also believe that electromagnetic forces contributed. I can relate to these people having feelings of being paralyzed. I would have that sensation before being subjected to physical exams.
Ian, which type of non-human did she describe?
Well, we'll ask her, Diana, if you can give us some more information about that. We'd like to know. But we are having people describing the actual entities that they've interacted with. Kelly N, for example, says she was awakened with greys, putting her back into bed. I was shocked and I started flaying my arms around. I had 3 marks on my arm and thigh. And also we have Margaret Slezak says, I used to experience sleep paralysis a lot. One night I saw something creeping by my bed. It turned to look at me with huge red eyes and let out the worst sound I'd ever heard.
And the thing that keeps coming to my mind is that we are not dealing with one intent. We're dealing with many different intents, and that there is some sort of pecking order of those that have more control over others. And rather than just guessing at it, it would be very interesting to put out to everybody who's here, have they had a face-to-face conscious interaction in, whether it's paralysis or anything else, with what they consider to be an extraterrestrial? And did they intuit or sense that it intended to do something to them that might be harmful? Or some people say, I don't think that they wanted to hurt me, as if there is some gradation in the intents of the different beings. And all of this paving the whole landscape about, we've been hearing about abduction cases for decades, animal mutilations for decades, and we are now at another juncture in the United States government where we're going to start having more congressional hearings, as I understand it. And we still don't have a firm sense as a human population of what exactly is true or not about extraterrestrial life, near us or far away, which is astonishing that it still has not been delivered in sentences and paragraphs to the world. But in the silence or the confusion that has been left by government policies, you, the humans that have had interactions with a variety of non-humans, you can help us understand what has happened to you. And one of the signals I think that everybody is looking for, are we being given any sign by any direction of beings who do say or telepath, we're not here to harm you, but we need material from your planet, some kind of trade? And that's come up many times since I did animal mutilations. And right now, given the strange atmosphere of Earth everywhere, potentials of destruction and all sorts of things happening that are all seem negative, going back to the yin and yang symbol, are any of you getting what you feel are signals to hang in there, that whatever is rough now, that it will evolve? Or the opposite, that are you getting signals that it could really be rough for a long time? Either way, I would like to know what's going on in your lives, even if you don't want your name or any, as you know, I can keep that a secret forever. But it's a sense of what is happening now all over the planet, and a lot of you live in other countries, when it comes to whether it's at night or day, interactions with what you think are non-humans, and what is it that they seem to want now. Ian.
Yeah, let's invite people if they want to share their experiences. Of course, we've got people sharing their experiences in the chat this evening, but they can contact us directly at earthfiles@earthfiles.com and share their experiences in detail. And if they put their contact details in there, we can reach out to them and contact them and get back to them and perhaps help them to share their experiences and explain their experiences. And I also want to yeah, sorry, go ahead, Linda.
Well, I was going to say, and there is a great organization, Opus, O-P-U-S, that next week I will definitely have all the information. I was going to try to have that up for you today. But a place where any of you who feel that you would like to work with a professional or somebody who is totally, they know a lot about what happens in the human abduction syndrome, so that you have some place you can contact for guidance. I've had a lot of notes from you all about asking that, and I will have all of that information on the screen next week. I wanted to make sure that we said exactly what's correct. In the meantime, it comes back into the question, are there people in our chat and the now more than 275,000 subscribers, are some of you having active interactions in some form now in the last half of September? I would just like to get a feel for how many people think or feel or know that they're having some kind of ongoing interaction. So I'm throwing that back to you, Ian.
Yeah, we're interested in people who do have an ongoing experience that they can relate to and give us more information. We're also interested to know exactly which species or types that they're interacting with. We've got someone here who talks about the chalky white grey chalky skin thing comes out at night when I'm half asleep. It changes faces and voices of people I know, like my mum and best friend. That's from Daniel in the chat tonight. We've got to just acknowledge a few super chats this evening. Thank you to Moonbird, who's driving this evening. Yeah, hi Moonbird, and Mark Petrie, Rock Gillespie and Janet Craft, thank you very much. And we also want to remind people that this episode of Earthfiles and all episodes of Earthfiles going way back now, I think we've got over 600 videos on our channel on YouTube, are available as podcasts.
Over 600? Wow.
I think if you look at our YouTube channel, it's currently showing that we've got 601 videos posted. I think we passed the 600 mark this week. So yeah, that's good. And like us and subscribe. And here's some questions, Linda. I've got a question here from Andrew Rollins. Is it possible we can have another episode on implants? I have a question for Linda that I have knowledge about. Is it possible that ETs use the skin from scoop marks to help a person's body to connect to the ET implanted technology?
I'll give you, it's a good question. I'll give you what I knew happened at a meeting with Robert Bigelow and others all the way back. I think it was in Philadelphia, definitely going back into the maybe the early 1990s. And it was show and tell with a variety of professionals who were taking a great interest in this whole issue of dynamics between ETs and humans and what might they be doing medically. And one of the presentations that I have never forgotten, they got an implant. The person, we'll call it the subject had contacted someone who knew how to get a hold of any a professional who might be working privately and secretly with some group, could have been Bigelow or someone else. And they put money into that research because it was important, they felt, to find out what are these implants? What can they do? And in this paper, it was that they showed photographs and showed lab reports in which the implant that was taken out was made entirely of that human's tissue. And the hypothesis was, in that particular presentation, that this was a way for extraterrestrials to sample from humans without there being some kind of immunity reaction between whatever the ETs would put into a human body that might set off alarms, that they encased it in the person's tissue, and that would have been done to keep any kind of body rejection from happening. That was the hypothesis on that one case. And I remember thinking, watching, that there is so much about the intelligence or intelligences that are interacting with Earth and have been for a long time, in which almost everything they do is behind cloaks, all kinds of this. If you only go this far, you're going to think it's this. If you go this far, you'll have 2. If you go this far, you might encounter 5 things that the ETs are doing. But that most people will stop at the first level, and everything remains a confusion and a mystery, because we really, on the public sector, there has not been enough investigation through science and medicine anywhere. But it's been going on in government labs for a very long time. They know a lot. And this issue of what is made to be camouflage, what is made to not reject, all of it is more complicated, I think, and that the intelligences are interacting with our planet down to the subatomic level, up to the macro level, at every level. Go ahead, Ian.
I want to just share a couple of experiences that people are sharing in the chat this evening. Ernesto Santos says, I was 9, frozen, wide awake. Something was in the corner of my room. A bright light outside my window over the fence. That month, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, damaged retinas due to radiation. And
what was the age? What was the age?
9 years of age.
So with 9 years, it
diagnosed with type 1 diabetes and damaged retinas, perhaps due to radiation.
Wow. Did they learn anything more now that he's older? Was there any more evolution in that investigation of him? That would be nice to hear from him.
Yeah, tell us more, please, Ernesto. Give us some more information.
Yeah.
I want to talk about another 2 factors that people are referencing. One is the let's say the shift in the energy in the room. Tom the Man TV, who's had my experiences, says does remember feeling the shift of the energy in the air that changes around me every time, and that's been referenced by other people.
Yeah.
Something else that people reference as well is waking to a buzzing noise in my ear. That's what Scorpio Angel says. And another person says, do you ever hear during the sleep paralysis, the buzzing noise that affects you as well, which we know, Linda, is very widespread.
Right, it is. And we're back to frequencies again, that the non-humans are using a huge suite of frequencies to accomplish a lot of different things. And it may be that it's only one of 100 technologies that are even being heard in human ears. We do not know. But are they advanced? Yes. Have they been on this planet for a long time? They certainly seem to me to have multiple bases here, Mars, Ganymede, and beyond. And if everything is positive and we're going to move out into space and we're going to start building a really serious base on Mars, we're already building one inside the moon where there's another base, then why wouldn't this be a jubilant time to finally introduce highly intelligent beings who might be able to help us with potential climate catastrophes ahead of us and in other ways? They can't all be negative. I just don't believe that. I think that there is some evolutionary suite of different motives and intent. And the only way that any of us can learn more is through our fellow human beings who are having experiences with non-humans. And hopefully that Congress people like Congressman Burchett are going to have more and more hearings. It's now supposedly in the works again. But why? Let's leave this tonight on a question that is being asked a lot, but now it's really taking on serious meaning. And maybe we can pick up more discussion about this next week. Is there any real fundamental reason why extraterrestrials can't be introduced to the Earth? If they're already here and they've been here for millennia and they interact with everything and they know how to harvest genetic material to cover up things and they're working among us anyway, so why not make it official and then start a whole new evolution? Is it because, as the aerospace person told me 4 years ago about the tronoloids that were the same as presented to Ronald Reagan in that March 6th to 8th, 1981, right? What was the Ronald Reagan date when he became president? And that if he was given a briefing, March 6th to 8th, 1981, if he was given a briefing about some kind of a threat, hasn't it been a long time since then that our government and other governments have been interacting? What is it? Why is it that we just simply can't have a straightforward, big world press conference and present everything? Why? Why do you think? I would really like your feedback, because it seems to me that's the normal way it should go.
Linda, Eric's run a poll in the audience this evening, and I can report that the poll is complete now, and 64% of our audience have experienced sleep paralysis.
64% of the Earthfiles YouTube channel audience tonight are saying they have had sleep paralysis.
That's right. Yes, that's what we've got referenced tonight. So it just shows that the number of people responding to our polls this evening is in the ratio of 2/3 to 1/3 of having sleep paralysis.
I wonder if that 2% in that Roper effort, if that is still some kind of general wide number of interactions, or if the 64% tonight in our program would reflect an increase in the number of people having interactions with non-humans. What would you guess is correct? Just a bigger population before, when they were talking about Reagan and tronoloids, or that it really has been an increase of interaction? What do you think?
It's a fascinating question. I think that, as we always suspected, and as many researchers suspect, that there are many, many people more involved in this than they realize. And it's been fascinating over the last few weeks while I've been working with people who've had abductions and experiences, who have shared their experiences together, and together they've built on experiences that they've put aside from their childhood or from earlier times that they now believe are connected with ET interactions.
And let's keep evolving this. Not every show will be human abductions, but from tonight's audience, all of you who have had any kind of experience that you honestly think is an interaction with a non-human, and that you can illustrate with pencils, colored crayons, and start sending to me personal experiences. I don't have to ever use anyone's name. But the one thing that I think is important right now is that everybody should be able to express with fellow human beings what has happened, what they have learned, and what they think is happening in their life. And if that began to be something that was not scary and that people could talk openly, it might be a slow revolution on Earth of actual truth for all of us. And on that note, thank you, Ian. Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Eric. Agape hug to everyone, everywhere.
Turn on closed captions for YouTube videos by clicking the white CC button on the lower right. The default language for Linda's videos is English. If you would like to see the captions in another language, click on the white settings button next to the CC button. Select Subtitles CC, and then select Auto Translate. Select a language, and the captions will now appear in that language.
Sort of gone through, and they will hold their heads. I never had a cat do that before. And they'll pull against the comb, helping me get out snarls. And I think it's the best they've ever been.